welcome. My name is Dennis Mello, and I'm the director of the Women Empowered Savings Group program here at Global Communities. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on savings groups in the digital age. First, real quick about Global Communities. We're an international NGO that works at the nexus of humanitarian assistance, sustainable development, and financial inclusion, reaching millions of people with community-based programs in more than 35 countries. We bring together local ingenuity and global insights to save lives, advance equity, and secure strong futures. Along with our partners at Women for Women International and the FAHU Foundation, I'm excited to again welcome you to today's webinar, where we'll talk about savings groups in the digital age and hear some great lessons and experiences from some experts in the field. We've got a great agenda, which will start off with my colleague Paula and I sharing some new resources in support of digital transformation, including the launch of the DSG Hub website and tools for organizations working on or thinking about introducing digital tools to savings groups. We'll then go into a fireside chat with a great group of savings groups experts to share some of their experiences with digitization and their thoughts on the future. And we'll have time for Q&A towards the end of the hour, depending upon how long we go. We should have 15 minutes towards the end of the hour before breaking into a networking event. And I'll share some more details about that as we get right after the Q&A. So feel free to enter your questions or any comments into the comments spot on the platform here, and we will get to those after the fireside chat. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce two of our key partners and supporters, Henrik Kahler and Kata Thomason-Kahler. Henrik and Kata are board members of the FAHU Foundation and co-initiators of the DSG Hub, where they serve on the advisory board and the steering committee. Over the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Henrik and Kata around our shared interest in savings groups and the potential of digitization, leading to our work on the DSG Hub and the tools that we'll be sharing today. So let me turn it over to Henrik and Kata now.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, and thank you to all of you attending this event. We have been looking very much forward for a long time for this day. For those of you who don't know us, we are a Danish foundation. We are free from any political, religious, economic restraints and interests. And what we do is we partner with organizations to support innovative savings group projects. We were founded in 2007, and since then we have exclusively dealt with savings groups. And in the recent years, we have become increasingly interested in how the digitization and how the spreading of mobile technology has created both new opportunities and also new challenges and risks for the savings groups all over the world. Now, the idea of making the DSG Hub came almost spontaneously up between Global Communities and the FAHU Foundation. We were finishing a pilot project in Tanzania, and in this small-scale project, we compared what we called born digital groups. That were groups that started saving via the savings app. We compared their performance with what we called paper to digital groups, existing groups that switched from paper to digital record keeping. And there were so many interesting findings and so many interesting learnings that came out of the project that the next logic question to ask ourselves and to ask Global Communities, our partner in the project, was how do we disseminate all these interesting findings? And we found out that there weren't really any good places out there where everybody could learn about digital savings groups. So there came the idea of creating this. We asked SEEP whether they would be interested in expanding the mango tree, and they said they found it very, very interesting, but they didn't have the possibility to expand on that. So that's how we came to the idea of creating the Digital Savings Group Hub.
And to make a long story short, if you can't buy it, build it. And global communities showed great interest and managed to raise some funds to add to the donation of the FAHU Foundation for the DSG Hub. We have followed the whole process closely, as we always like to do with projects founded by the FAHU Foundation, and it has been a great pleasure for us to see the dedication of our partners at global communities. You have accomplished so much in such short time and overcome all obstacles on the way. We look forward to continue to play a part of the future development of the hub, and we hope that it will be well received by the community. Furthermore, we hope that knowledge sharing in the hub will help build the community of practice of digitization that, whether we intend it or not, will play a big role in the savings group community in the years to come. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henrik and Kata. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing some background on your involvement and where we came from to get to today. So right now, without any further delay, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Paula Rudnicka, who has been managing much of this process, this process of the DSG Hub build from the global community side. Paula, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, and huge thanks to all of you for joining us today. My name is Paula Rudnicka, and I am a Senior Technical Advisor for Gender Integration at Global Communities. I also manage the DSG Hub project, and I am extremely excited to finally officially launch the DSG Hub today and demonstrate some of its key features and functionalities. But first, let me just say a few words about why we created the Hub and what we are trying to achieve. And we can start our PowerPoint presentation. So the past decade has seen a growing interest and investment in digital solutions for savings groups. Emerging evidence suggests that going digital has many benefits for savings groups members and savings groups as such, but digitization also comes with various risks and challenges, and these include, for example, data privacy violations, gender gaps and constraints, as well as persistent digital divide. We know that every single project that deals with digital savings groups implemented thus far has generated a wealth of information about these and many other aspects of digitization. But we also know that this information is not always easily available to practitioners and technology providers, donors, and researchers. We created the Hub to fill this vacuum and create a global destination for anyone who is planning, implementing, developing technology for, and studying digital savings groups. We can go to the next slide. So what is the DSG Hub? So in a nutshell, the DSG Hub is an online learning and community platform aimed at facilitating thoughtful, safe, and inclusive digitization of savings groups. We have two main goals. Our goal number one is to share useful, high-quality resources so that we can all learn from successes and shortcomings in the sector. And goal number two is to build a really dynamic and enthusiastic community of practice around the DSG Hub, where diverse stakeholders can come together, connect, exchange knowledge and ideas, and also possibly plant seeds for future collaboration. I would like to emphasize that the intention behind the DSG Hub is to inspire but not push for innovation. We want savings group stakeholders to make really sound and informed decisions, first of all, whether to digitize savings groups in the first place, and second of all, how to do it effectively and inclusively so that digitization is truly valuable for savings groups members. Our primary audience consists of technology providers, implementers, donors, and researchers. And we can go to the next slide. So now I will talk a little bit about some of the key components and features of the DSG Hub. The DSG Hub website consists of 5 main pages. We have the homepage, about, resources, blog, and community pages. The homepage, which is presented on this slide, gives users an easy access to our news and updates, and also newly posted resources. And users can also easily navigate to sub-pages which correspond with different stages of their digitization journeys. And so, for example, we have a sub-page with resources dedicated to getting started with digital technology, implementing digital savings projects, and also examining learning and evidence. We can go to the next slide. Our resources page contains a growing library of useful resources and practical resources. They range from short articles and toolkits to full-fledged studies and multimedia. And each of the resources has its own dedicated resource card or a summary, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. This is useful because our users can like and bookmark these resources using these cards, share them on social media, and also comment on them to spark a conversation with other community members. Our blog contains blog posts written by our small editorial team, but we also happily accept guest blog posts. So if you have blog post ideas that you would like to share with us, please reach out and we'll be able to discuss the details. I wanted to point out that we invested in a strong research or search function. Each of the main pages contains a prominent search button or search bar. And we have also developed filters and tags so that you can easily narrow down your searches on the Hub. And next page, please. So this is a screenshot of our community page. The community page is essentially a directory of registered DSG Hub members. You can search them by area of expertise or by countries. Then you can pull up their profiles and even connect with them directly through our built-in messaging platform. Next slide, please. And finally, our About page contains basic information about the Hub, as well as information about our steering committee, about our amazing advisory board, and about key community contributors, which are institutions, organizations, and individuals who have committed to publishing content on the Hub. Next slide. You do not need to be a key contributor to be able to share your work. In fact, proposing content on the Hub is very easy through our online content submission form. We have developed content templates and guidelines to help you in the process, and we can accept resources and content in different forms. You can share content that has or has not been published elsewhere. We also accept content ideas, drafts, and outlines. The DSG Hub is always free of charge, and you do not need to be a registered member to be able to view and download resources. But we very much encourage you to sign up and be members of the DSG Hub, because this will give you a full access to our community platform and also the ability to comment on resources, which I think is going to be very helpful for all of us. We can go to the next slide. So on a final note, I would like to personally thank the FAHU Foundation for funding the DSG Hub project, Women for Women International for co-sponsoring this event, for my colleagues at Global Communities for really amazing collaboration, and to all of our advisory board members and key community contributors for their invaluable inputs and contributions. I have no doubt that the success of the Hub will really depend on active engagement from all of our community members like you. So Please visit us at www.dsghub.org. Register as a member, subscribe to our newsletter, share your work, and be an active member of our community. On this note, I would like to turn it over back to Dennis, who will talk about some of our key anchor resources that we have produced for the Hub. And just a note that if you have any questions or comments about anything that we are discussing during this event, please put them in the comment chat feature, and we will try to get to them during the Q&A session at the end of the event. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. So I'm really glad to be able to share these three anchor resources that we created. Two we created specifically for the Hub as part of the our DSG Hub project, and then the third that we created as a separate project, but with the intention of posting here on the Hub. So you can see the three here. There's the DSG Glossary, the DSG Toolkit, and then the DSG Technology Solutions Overview. Now, each of these was created based off of not only Global Community's experience with digital savings groups, but from input and conversation and feedback from a host of savings group implementers, experts, and participants from around the world, with some savings group members in Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ethiopia providing specific feedback. I want to first talk about the DSG Glossary. With each of these tools, we created them to support implementers and other organizations interested in digital savings groups, to support them kind of throughout the journey of deciding if, when, and how to introduce digital tools to their groups. The glossary in particular we developed to support that communication between the different types of actors involved with digital savings groups. So there's savings groups implementers themselves who have their own language. There's technology providers who have a very specific language of their own, and then there's the financial sector. And so if you're coming from any one of those with less familiarity about any of the other two, having a key set of terms that you can look up and reference would be really helpful. So we've organized here hundreds of terms into 6 sections that folks should be familiar with before launching, or really anytime they're going through a digitization project. And those are terms around digital savings groups, financial inclusion, digital financial services, digital identity, networks, and communication. It's not an exhaustive glossary. We pulled from a number of resources, existing glossaries from around the sector and around the 3 sectors, but it's not an exhaustive list, and additional terms are always welcome, and folks can enter those as comments or contact us at the Hub with any suggestions. The next tool that we developed specifically for the Hub was the DSG Technology Solutions Overview. Again, with the thought in mind of helping folks who are interested in getting started with digital savings groups. It was created really as sort of a first stop for any organization or implementer looking to begin that look of where can I go, who can I work with, what options are out there. So building from, some of you may recall what CEAP had on the technology page of the mango tree. We've sort of built from that and from other resources and from conversations with each of these technology providers to provide key information on each tool, on each type of tool that we found in the market. and around their functionalities, their costs, hardware and network requirements, where they're actually operational, and in what languages. And again, this list may not be exhaustive. And if there are other technologies that either you know of or that you've developed yourselves that you think should be included, please do let us know. Finally, we have the DSG Toolkit, which Global Communities developed in partnership with Women for Women International. The DSG Toolkit consists of 7 practical tools to support the safe, effective, and gender-responsive digitization of savings groups. And these 7 tools can be used individually, one at a time. They can be used all together. They can be used by organizations who are just starting to think about digital transformation, or organizations who have been doing it for years. The toolkit includes, and it's a little hard to see here, but there's 7 tools, and you can see in the middle screenshot that's a map of the toolkit. There's a tool for checking your preparedness of your organization to launch a DSG project, or to continue implementing a DSG project. There's a tool with recommendations on project staffing for DSGs compared to standard savings groups. There's suggestions on monitoring and evaluation of digital savings groups projects, tips for promoting women's digital capability, a tool on addressing the risks, identifying and addressing the risks of gender-based violence that come about when introducing digital tools. There's also a digital user dialogues tool, which consists of 8 key topics that promote digital literacy and digital skills among savings group members. So and from basics of opening a mobile account, basic phone use, using mobile money and social media, using apps and mobile internet, and also data protection and data costs for people to really meant for first time and beginning users to gain some of those critical skills that they'll need when using a smartphone or another digital device for the first time. Those dialogues were developed to be delivered directly to savings groups by the trainer or whoever is facilitating their development. And finally, the toolkit includes a set of questions around data privacy and data security for implementers to ask technology providers and get answers on before they launch a digital savings group project. Because with most tools, there is a lot of data collected, and there's a lot of risk and responsibility that comes with introducing that type of tool and collecting that type of data. I will say, yeah, with this tool and the other 2, they are all available now on the DSG Hub. And you can go and check them out now. Again, we're really excited to launch these, and based on the Digital Savings Group Toolkit, we've been working with Women for Women International on this for over a year. We're very excited to launch it and make it available on the Hub. And again, with any suggestions, comments, and thoughts, do share those anytime on the Hub or directly with us. So at this point, we're going to switch over to the fireside chat, and I'll have all the participants in the fireside chat come up on stage, and I am. It's my pleasure to introduce Bindi Javeri, who will be our moderator for the fireside chat. Bindi's a financial inclusion expert at Grameen Foundation with 17 years of experience working in the financial services and livelihood space. Bindi's been supporting Grameen's digital savings group and digital financial services and women's economic empowerment programming since 2019, and is about to start an exciting new project called which is the USAID Udabidi project. Then you're going to have to correct that.
Udabidi.
Right.
It means resilience in Swahili. Thank you.
And Udabidi uses digital savings groups, digital financial services, and market systems approaches to support refugees in Uganda to transition from humanitarian assistance to durable livelihoods and household resilience. So Bindi, thanks for taking on the moderator task for today, and I'll turn it over to you and the chat.
Okay, thank you, Dennis, and good morning and good evening, everyone. My name is Bindi, and I work for Grameen Foundation USA. Grameen is a global pioneer in the digital savings group space, and we're continuing to expand our programming in East and West Africa. We're also a member of the DSG Hub Advisory Board. So today I'm excited to bring together 5 panelists who also have deep experience in the establishment, training, and support of digital savings groups. They'll be sharing more about their experiences and lessons learned supporting digital savings groups, as well as the considerations that organizations should take when onboarding women and other marginalized groups. The amazing panelists we have here today include Anthony Mangeni, Regional Technical Advisor for Microfinance and Youth at Catholic Relief Services, David Panetta, Executive Director of LGP and former Program Director at the SEAT Network, Julia Arnold, an independent consultant focused on women's social and financial inclusion, and she was also previously Senior Research Director for Women's Financial Inclusion at the Center for Financial Inclusion. Melissa Mazingi, Director of Innovation at Women for Women International, and last but not least, Tamrat Abera, a Program Manager and Senior Financial Inclusion Advisor at Mercy Corps. So we're about to start the fireside chat, but before we do, I just want to kind of hint to all of our audience members that if you have any questions during the chat for the participants, please go ahead and drop them in the comments box, and we're going to be trying to answer as many as possible at the end of this discussion. All right, so we can get started. Our first question is for Melissa, Tamrat, and Anthony. So Women for Women International, Mercy Corps, and CRS all have experience implementing digital savings group initiatives. Can you describe these initiatives briefly and then let us know what were some of the key benefits and challenges of digitalization from your experience? So we're going to start with Tamrat.
Okay, thank you, Bindi. So most of saving groups in Ethiopia are manual. So we wanted to pilot digitization with the objective of enabling VSLs to conduct saving transactions digitally. So the benefits include that the digitization replaces paper ledger for digital ledger, making record keeping easier, accurate, and time efficient. In a sense that the saving groups are able to register and track members' attendance, buy shares, issue new loans, and also repay back their loans using just the mobile devices instead of using paper record keeping. The other advantage, the other benefit is that actually we are thinking, planning to do it in the future after digitization, is that loans, especially most loans in developing countries like Ethiopia, are collateral based. So if you want to get loans, you need to have a collateral, which the poor is missing. So this digitization process helps us, financial institutions to get the digital data, saving data of saving groups, which can be used, for credit scoring system, so that the financial institutions will provide loans based on the data. So data-driven lending is our next plan. So these are some of the benefits of digitization of saving groups.
Great, thank you, Tamrat. And then so for time, we're going to turn to Melissa. Melissa, tell us about your project and the benefits and challenges you saw from digitization.
Sure, thanks, Bindi. So Women for Women in Rwanda, we have over 78,000 graduates over the 25 years that Women for Women has been working in Rwanda. And many of these graduates work within VSLAs. They're over 1,000 women savings groups with 20,000 members. And these women savings groups have had great impact, but have also struggled with the challenge of keeping data for members since they're doing their bookkeeping manually. And that leads to errors in their books and the loss of some members' records as well. And this in turn can create conflict and mistrust among group members, especially during that share out at the end of the savings cycle. So we realized that the digital responses were urgently needed to address this challenge. And so Women for Women Rwanda has run a number of projects, including the digitalization of over 320 VSLAs with more than 8,200 members through the DreamSave app. This has made it easy for the supported groups to manage financial records and helping members achieve their savings goals, building credit history, as Tamrat said, and also enabling them to connect with formal financial services. There have, of course, been some challenges. For instance, some members who receive smartphones have no electricity at home, and so that requires the women to travel long distances to charge their phones. And in addition, some male partners have been noted as being hostile towards their wives owning a smartphone when they do not. But with the continued commitment of our team, we're seeing some really great impact overall, including increased women's digital literacy levels and increased efficiency and effectiveness of bookkeeping, time saved to dedicate to other activities, and also greater membership retention within the supported groups.
Great, thanks so much, Melissa. So we're going to turn to Anthony now. Anthony, same question.
Thank you, Bindi. The idea of digitizing the savings group's operation within CRS was mooted in early 2010 when within the Kenya program, CRS looked at the benefits of the M-Pesa ecosystem, and we started thinking about how can the silk groups for CRS participating also benefit from such an ecosystem. And therefore, later on in 2015, we did the first e-recording pilot in partnership with FSD Kenya, Financial Sector Deepening Kenya, and Care Kenya. This opened later on the space for conversations within the agency that has led to a few other pilots, especially in our East Africa programs. And one key benefit includes shorter meeting times as a result of digitized record keeping. This is a key benefit because it addresses time poverty, especially for the women folk, most of them who participate in these savings groups in rural areas, and they spend a number of hours in these groups. So reducing the time in groups through digitized record keeping, which also addressed the issue of accuracy, was a key benefit according to us as an agency, and we believe in the entire industry. One of the key challenges is that these pilots are done in what I will refer to as a control room of sorts, because once the pilots are done, groups, since these apps are not for free, groups must deal with the hosting fees once these projects close, because most of these fees and costs are usually absorbed or subsidized by NGOs. And post-project, this really affects access and usage of these apps. And we believe that this is a key factor for sustainability, although currently we are seeing a number of digital apps coming up to introduce other ecosystem actors to absorb such a cost. So that's one of the key challenges in terms of ensuring continued use and access of these apps. Back to you, Bindi.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. And then, so I'm just going to continue along the theme a little bit. And so the next question, we're going to start with Anthony again, is what is the one thing that you wish you had known before you started this savings group digitization project? And just be very brief, one sentence, please.
I think in retrospect, we need to have an ecosystem mindset among savings groups promoters to appreciate the end game, so that when we start this project, we start appreciating that there are other ecosystem actors whose voices are key in these pilots, because their engagement in the design, implementation, and evaluation of these pilots is crucial in making future digital savings group solutions inclusive.
Okay, great. And then Anthony, just very briefly, which ecosystem actors are you talking about?
There are many. Besides the savings group players themselves, we have the trainers of savings groups, we have banks and other financial institutions. We have the fintechs as well that are supposed to talk to each other, because most of the time it's the NGO, the fintech, and the savings groups. And we believe these are the key ecosystem actors, including the government.
Exactly. All right. So same question for Melissa, just one sentence.
Thanks, Bindi. I would say the one thing we wish we had known is that we needed to engage men sooner within the process and within the project, right from the start of the project, to create awareness of project goals and mobilize their support, as well as work on changing community mindsets on women using smartphones.
Okay, great. Thanks, Melissa. And then Tamrat, we'll close with this question with you.
Okay, conducting the risk assessment because the risks this could have helped us to identify specific local challenges in the digitization process, which we could use for designing mitigation strategy. So the risks could be connectivity issues, particularly in remote rural areas. There is no internet connectivity. And the other risk is mobile ownership. Also, very few people do have smartphone mobiles in the remote areas. And the last is digital financial literacy. So, if you have conducted a risk assessment, we could have, designed the mitigation strategy for these challenges.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you kind of highlighting both the benefits and the challenges and the risks inherent in digital savings group projects. And just a reminder, as Dennis mentioned, the DSG Hub has produced several tools and blogs that describe the risks of digitization and how to address them, and including the gender and inclusion and language issues that can arise during digitization projects. Okay, so our next question is around gender, and it's for Julia and Melissa. So digital tools offer opportunities to increase financial inclusion for millions of savings group members around the world. And the majority of savings group members are, of course, women. But at the same time, we know that access to digital devices, the internet, and digital skills is lower among women than men. So what does this mean for rural savings groups and their members, especially women? What are some of the key gender and inclusion risks and constraints to digitizing savings groups that you have observed in your work? And then how can we work to be more gender responsive? So it's a big question, and we'll start with Julia.
Yeah, thank you, Bindi. Access to digital technology offers legitimately real opportunities for women in rural areas to gain access to digital financial services and other digital opportunities. But in bringing rural saving group members into formal financial systems remains a significant challenge, and many digital financial tools remain out of reach as well. As we all know, there are very real barriers to infrastructure, to cost, which is continually a persistent barrier, as well as practical knowledge and capabilities around how to use a smartphone or navigate online fraud or access to potential online markets, knock-on benefits of having access to a technology. So as we've seen from the most recent GSMA mobile gender gap report, these gaps persist despite increased investment in digitalization globally. Technology can have unseen, unintended consequences, as Melissa mentioned earlier. And women's trust and confidence in using technology can also be a persistent and very real barrier that needs significant investment from the group of stakeholders seeking digitalization. So it's also important to remember that savings groups have a purpose beyond just access to informal savings. They're a critical community group with deep social bonds, and digital tools don't necessarily have to disrupt that aspect of the group, but it's important to keep that in mind when introducing a new element to such a beloved institution.
Great, thank you, Julia. And then so Melissa, same question.
Sure. I definitely echo all of the constraints that Julia's identified. And as far as the top 3 things that DSG implementers can do for more gender sensitive programming, first I'd suggest that it's very helpful to conduct a mapping exercise to identify any shortcomings on resources needed for successful DSGs. This is similar to what Tamrat said, and looking at resources such as electricity in the areas of operation and mobile coverage, and to use this mapping exercise to budget for additional needs such as solar panel charging stations, for instance. And the digital preparedness checklist from the toolkit really supports that mapping exercise. I'd also say it's necessary to engage and induct men from the start of the project. following on from what I said previously, using some of that guidance from the tool promoting women's digital capabilities. And finally, it might also be helpful to provide feature phones to the partners of the bookkeepers within the DSGs, wherever this is possible, not only to reduce conflicts that may arise, but also to promote greater integration of digital savings tools at a household level.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Melissa and Julia. Definitely the male engagement and the risks that arise when women are engaged in these projects and, men are not addressed are huge. So I really appreciate your answers. So our next questions are going to be for David Panetta. And so David, your question is, what do you think is the key action that the savings group sector needs to take before embracing a widespread digital transformation?
So the most important thing I think we can all do is think of digital savings groups as systems rather than products. When we talk about digital savings groups, we talk a lot about technology, and it's understandable. A good application is necessary, but digital savings groups are about much more than technology. They're about people, they're about processes, they're about business models and partnerships. So the digitization of a savings group program changes staffing needs, changes the way people participate, who participates, how they participate, how they benefit in savings groups. It changes our operational models, how we facilitate the groups, the tools we use to interact with those groups. It changes the organizations that we work with and how we work with them. So rather than focus narrowly on the product or the application, I think what we would all benefit from understanding or viewing digital savings groups more as systems rather than a shiny new application.
Yeah, definitely, David. And I think I've seen it quite a few times where people think they can just bring in this app and they drop it in, they have the training, and they think people are using it every week and that it's benefiting all members of the group, where we recognize that some of the more tech savvy members of the group, when you digitize, those members become more powerful, and the ones who are less literate and less tech savvy become weaker. So thank you. And so the next question for you is, let me go to it. So you recently shared some thoughts on the DSG Hub in a blog around the costs and benefits, the money costs and benefits of digitization. So why do you think it's important for organizations to think about whether the benefits, the cost, kind of justify the investment in DSG solutions? Why do you think that's important?
Well, what I'm seeing right now is a growing number of successful DSG pilot projects. They're not necessarily being scaled up or translating to or being institutionalized. And the reason for that, I believe, is that there's a difference between a pilot. I like Anthony's expression about how pilots are in this control room. And it's very different to translate that to full-fledged institutional change, which change management's expensive and it's risky. I'm not talking just about digital savings groups, but in the broader sense. And digital savings groups are no different. And how do we make those decisions? How do we manage those risks? Well, with solid cost-benefit data. And many organizations lack that data. So they get stuck in a cycle of pilot projects where the results are good, but they don't have that justification to translate those pilots to a full digital transformation. Several of the panelists have talked about the benefits of digital savings groups. These are real, they're observable, but they're seldom measured. And the magnitude of these changes matter because if we're investing in this change, we need to know the magnitude, the variance of these expected outcomes. On the cost side, things get even murkier. Several of the panelists have talked about how costs are absorbed differently in pilot projects. And then when the project ends, well, those costs have to shift somewhere. And so in my experience, organizations are often caught off guard when projects end and these costs get shifted and sometimes come to light. They were not even fully aware of the full cost. So very quickly, these costs involve product development, acquisition, hardware requirements, devices for staff and members, device maintenance, which is not a problem until it is a problem. It involves distance from agent outlets, user fees, license fees for the organization, for the user. And so we could do a much better job of collecting this information and projecting this information even before we get started, so we get a full picture of the costs and benefits, which would allow us to make decisions and manage risks more effectively.
Okay, thank you so much, David. Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe one of the things I hear from your discussion about lots of pilots, not a lot of scale up, is maybe a lack of building sustainability into the program design. You know, if we saw that these things were sustainable, it would be easier to scale up. So thank you, David. And so I have one last question for all of the panelists here. So the last question is, what do you think the future of digital savings groups is, and what would you like it to be? And so we're going to start with Melissa.
Sure. I'd like to see more dialogue, really, around the use of DSGs. That's dialogue among practitioners, like we're doing now, on best practice and constantly improving the way that we work, but also very strongly coupled with dialogue with savings groups to ensure that the work is responsive and it's effective in relation to their needs.
Okay, great. And so let's go to Tamrat.
Okay. I see the future of the digital the financial saving group is very positive outlook. Because of two reasons. One, specifically this applies to Ethiopia. One, the telecom sector is now opening up, so I expect that the connectivity issues will be solved, so that internet will be, internet access will be accessed by rural communities. The second one is regarding to the national digital strategy. So currently, Ethiopia is, implementing the recently devised national digital strategy, which I believe is very important for expanding digital financial services.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tamrat. And we'll go to Anthony next. Anthony, you're on mute. Digital technologies can get you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. We hope to see a future where the digital apps enable savings groups to participate in the digital economy. But whatever the future holds, I want to remind fellow practitioners and other actors in the ecosystem that, and repeating the points made by Julia, that savings groups are not just about financial assets. It is the social assets part of these groups that ensure that these households are financially and psychologically resilient. So we need to digitize with the social assets part in mind. And of course, we want to see more young people in the countries where these pilots are taking place. We want to see more young people participating in the fintech supply chain so that they can also be part of the market share. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anthony. And then so we will go to David.
So digital record keeping applications are just the beginning. We see the leading DSG solutions now being integrated with mobile money systems, digital financial services, introducing digital channels for skills development, market access, credit scoring that unlocks uncollateralized lending, remote communication channels for monitoring, results measurement, humanitarian communications. So for me, this is the really exciting stuff, and we're really at the beginning of this journey.
Okay, great. And then Julia?
Yeah, I when I think about this question, I think sort of similar to David at a macro level, and the benefits of digitalization cannot really be fully felt by savings groups and their members until the financial system changes to the point where rural savings groups and their members are seen as legitimate financial actors. A shift is needed still in how the financial system, the regulatory bodies, policymakers, providers, etc., view these informal actors in the informal economy, particularly women, and design products and processes so that they can participate and benefit from the digital economy. The pandemic has brought this gap into the broad, stark daylight. And many stakeholders are working on a more inclusive system, which makes me feel optimistic about the future of digital women's financial inclusion.
Okay, thanks, Julia. And I know we're a bit behind time, but your points were so important, and I totally agree that I personally would love to see savings groups more be at the center of their needs and priorities and challenges and what they want be at the center of digitization of savings groups in the future. Okay, so I want to thank all of our panelists for their great contributions, and I just want to remind everyone that our panelists and both Paula and Dennis and others have put together some great technical toolkits and guides, including the Digital Savings Group Toolkit, Glossary, Technology Catalog, and the digital readiness tool that they mentioned, and it's all available on the DSG website. So at this point, I want to remind everyone, if you have a question, put it into the comment box, and we're going to go into the Q&A now, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dennis.
Thanks, Bindi. Thanks to all of our panelists. We've got some great questions that I want to share back. We've got a few minutes for the Q&A now. So I'll jump in, and I want to ask Tamra, there's a question from Mabel around literacy, and there was another question about access to smartphones, and I'm particularly interested in this one. So many of our savings groups, rural savings groups that we work with, include large numbers of illiterate or low literate members, particularly women. And so as we introduce these new digital tools, how can we ensure that they are, or are they right? How do we work with those communities that are, those groups that are low literacy and so much less, perhaps less familiar with digital tools in general?
Okay, thank you, Dennis, and also the question from the participants. So regarding, these two issues are very, very critical. The literacy level and smartphone ownership specifically in rural areas, is expected that you can face these challenges. So from our experience, what we did was just for the literacy, we used two strategies. The first strategy is that we translated the apps. As you know, most of the digital tools are developed in English. So at least in order to minimize, the complexity of the technology, we have translated the app into local languages. So far we have around 4 to 5 translated into 4 to 5 languages, local language. So that the communities will be convenient to use the digital tools. So our major tech supplier is currently we're working with Jami1. So in Jami1 we have local language in Somali, in Afar, in Afan Oromo, and in Amharic. So this, by doing this, we are able to minimize at least the problem. The second strategy is that we delivered several TOT sessions for field agents on digital financial literacy skills, basic one that is customized to fit into the abilities of the rural community. So we have trained, and also we are planning to train field agents on basic digital financial literacy, so that these agents will train the community at the ground level. Regarding the smartphone, also, on some regions, we partnered with some donors and development partners to provide smart devices to pilot this problem. In the other areas, we shifted our target areas from most rural areas to semi-urban areas where you can find relatively people with smart devices. So we're working with such target groups. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamrat. I want to ask Melissa now. Tamrat shared some things that I've heard elsewhere, right? Start with groups that are in more urban, semi-rural areas. Certainly working on digital literacy training of the savings group staff, of the training staff themselves, because they require different skills that may not be available, particularly in savings group models that rely on community-based volunteers and trainers. But this question of so there's another question is, are digital savings groups possible in rural groups? Listening to Tamrat say, well, we need to look in semi-urban areas. What has Women for Women's experience been?
Sure, thanks for that. I will start by saying it is very possible to implement this kind of work with rural communities. One of the success stories we have is that women who participate in our digital savings groups projects become advocates within the community for other members to take up digital savings technologies. We have a demonstration that savings cooperatives in Kayonza, which is about 2 hours out of Kigali in Rwanda, and they do a demonstration with two groups, one group doing a manual share out and pay in with their savings group, and another using the app. And it really shows the time difference between the two. And, that goes back to that question of time poverty and how we can support women in having more time for other activities. And that demonstration and the fact that the women become advocates themselves for rural technology digital technology within their own rural communities, I think is testament to the fact that this is very possible within rural communities.
Thanks, Melissa. I want to mention that there are more questions. Unfortunately, we are right at time and aren't going to be able to answer more questions live today. But we have the DSG Hub, and through our blog and through some other through our community platform, we will post these questions and they'll have a chance for folks to offer their comments and their own responses. I just want to mention again, I see one more comment here around the strength of savings groups being in the ties that develop through weekly meetings, through regular meetings, through the social interactions. We've heard that from a lot of our presenters, and the question from Armand is, how do we keep those ties while introducing digital savings tools? And I think, Armand, it's possible depending upon the tool that's introduced, right? At Global Communities, we were very interested in this as well, not wanting to go to fully virtual meetings, because that in-person work of the groups is so valued by the members. But again, I think it ties back to ensuring savings group members are at the table when we're talking about any tools to introduce to them, and that they're designed with the group members in mind. So it's so that the full benefits that each member derives now from being a part of a savings group are retained as any new tools, including digital tools, are introduced. So I want to close by thanking you all for joining today, thanking our partners at FAHU and Women for Women International, as well as my colleague Paula, Bindi for moderating our fireside chat, and for all the folks who participated in all our savings group experts. I wanted to invite you all to stick around for a 30-minute networking session, virtual networking session that we'll have right after the show. And this will allow for short one-on-one conversations that will be randomly paired up with folks who are in attendance here. So if you have the time to stick around, this is how it should work. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see an icon that looks like two people shaking hands, with the word people below it. So click on that link, click on the icon where it says people, and then you'll see the opportunity to join now for the networking event. And then you'll be randomly paired with somebody for a 3-minute conversation, which will then, you'll go to another person after that. And it's a chance for all of us to expand our connections with others interested in digital savings groups within the sector, and continue these conversations about how we can make this growing trend the most beneficial to the savings group members that we work with around the world. Some questions on the screen there in case you have any. In case you need any prompts while you're in the networking event, but I invite you all to join, and let's stay in touch through the DSG Hub. Thanks very much.